Hare Krishna. Naveen Prabhu, are you available to lead Kirtan?
Yes, I can, bro. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacacharya Stotara Sri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath, Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Tham Ki Jai, Navadip Tham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamana Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Welcome everybody to Srimad Bhagavatam reading with His Holiness Jayādvaita Swami. It is Wednesday, December 31st, 2025, and we are beginning with Srimad Bhagavatam 4:24-73. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Tevayam Nodita Sarve Prajasarge Prajeshwaraha Anena Dwasta Tamasa Shrikshmo Vividha Prajaha. When all the Prajapatis were ordered to create by Lord Brahma, we chanted these prayers in praise of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and became completely free from all ignorance. Thus we were able to create different types of living entities. Purport. In this verse, we can understand that the various types of living entities were created simultaneously at the very beginning of the creation. The nonsensical Darwinian theory of evolution is not applicable here. It is not that intelligent human beings did not exist millions of years ago. On the contrary, it is understood that the most intelligent creature, Lord Brahma, was first created. Then Lord Brahma created other saintly sages like Marichi, Bhrigu, Atreya, Vashishta, and Lord Shiva. They, in their turn, created different types of bodies according to karma. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Kapil Dev told his mother that the living entity gets a particular type of body in accordance with his work, and that this body is decided upon by higher authorities. The higher authorities, as appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are Lord Brahma and all other Prajapatis and Manus. Thus, from the beginning of creation, it can be seen that the first creature is the most intelligent. It is not that so-called modern intelligence has developed by the gradual process of evolution. As stated in Brahma-Vaivarta Purana, there's a gradual evolutionary process, but it is not the body that is evolving. All the bodily forms are already there. It is the spiritual entity or spiritual spark within the body that is being promoted by the laws of nature under the supervision of superior authority. We can understand from this verse that from the very beginning of creation, different varieties of living entities were existing. It is not that some of them have become extinct. Everything is there. It is due to our lack of knowledge that we cannot see things in their proper perspective. In this verse, the word dvasta tamasa is very important, for without being free of ignorance, one cannot control the creation of different types of living entities. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Daiva Netrena, bodies are awarded under the supervision of superior powers. How can these superior powers control the evolutionary process of the living entity if they are not free from all imperfection? The followers of the Vedic instructions cannot accept the Darwinian theory of evolution, for it is marred by imperfect knowledge. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurn Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Tadhati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamanang Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Pitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lodita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kantam Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hodi Priye Pancha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The Devayam Nodita Sarve Prajasarge Prajeshvaraha Anena Dvasta Tamasa Sushrikshma Vividha Praja. Well, prominent here is Prabhupada's rejection of the nonsensical Darwinian theory. I'm sure Prabhupada must have said nonsense Darwinian theory. That was his standard word. Why? Because it's against the Vedic knowledge. According to the Vedic wisdom, Adikaviye, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikaviye. In the beginning, the most intelligent person is Lord Brahma. And we have top-down creation. Lord Brahma, having been created by the Lord, creates other living entities. They create other living entities. And this way it goes on. And Darwinian evolution is just the opposite. In the beginning, you have, I don't know that Darwin started this, but you have inanimate biochemicals, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon, and the building blocks of life. And they somehow or other are charged into consciousness and projected into consciousness, and then they evolve upward. So these are simply incompatible views. It can't be that life starts from the very bottom and evolves up, while at the same time you start at the highest peak of capability and work down. They're just two different views. And it would be very hard to work out a compromise. Some compromises are there, or accommodation. We understand that there can be random mutation that changes some aspect of a butterfly or an ant or something, but that doesn't empirically turn into the evolutionary picture of mutation to higher and higher, more complex species. It's just, differences between one butterfly and the next, or some group of creatures, but it doesn't really go anywhere, as we say. It remains a small scale effect, not an overall plan or blueprint for overall pattern for the development of different species of life. Just from as far as I've been able to understand, the empiric evidence doesn't really support it, except in textbooks where you can sort of gloss over things and in summary and not have to deal with real deal with complexity. Did you want to say something about that?
I'm just reading through my notes.
Okay. Not have to deal with complexity. Sadaputa Prabhu used to say the mathematicians all know that evolution doesn't work, but they keep mum about it because it upsets the biologists. And Sadaputa has given a very good discussion of this in, again, mechanistic and non-mechanistic science. he's dealt with particularly well. He's dealt with both Darwinian evolution and do we call it chemical evolution? The idea that life arises from chemicals. I think that's called chemical evolution. But in any case, we know what we're talking about, the idea that biochemicals self-organize into living beings. It's just not a well-supported theory in terms of the data. That aside, we don't have to get into all of that because our process of receiving knowledge is different. Some scientists may say, yes, the data supports it. Others argue, no, the data doesn't support it. Even on the level of complexity, there may be different opinions. In fact, Sadhaputta began one article about evolution by highlighting a meeting that took place at the, I think, Chicago Field Museum or something like that. All, very prominent, the most prominent evolutionists or most prominent biologists. And he said they all agreed that evolution was a fact, but they couldn't agree on what it was because of, again, problems with the data. So data or no data, our method is different. We take the version of the Shastras. That was Prabhupada's approach. He wasn't going to spend years of research to find out what the data said immediately. This is against the Bhagavatam, and so we don't accept this view. Yes.
So Saraswati Mataji writes, Pranams Param Puja Gurudev and all the Vaishnavas. When scientists claim certain species of life have become extinct, is that a lie because here it said different living entities don't become extinct?
Well, my assumption is that we have lots of different worlds to deal with. That's not an assumption. The Vedic statement is we have lots of different universes, lots of different worlds. So that some living entity, some species is no longer available or no longer seen on this planet hardly matters because there's so many other places where those living entities can be found. From the Vedic point of view, why are there all these bodies? Daiva netrena, karmana daiva netrena, according to living entities, activities, desires, and the supervision of higher authorities. So he has his desires and he has his karma, so he has to get a particular body that suits that background. So whether he gets it here or he gets it there, it's someplace. So that nature can accommodate his karma, or the results, we would say, of his karma. So the body is available, but it may not be available here, or it may not be visible here. Now and then we find that some species thought to be extinct is rediscovered. But it would seem unlikely to us that, Tyrannosaurus rex is really someplace on Earth right now. Seems unlikely that he would escape our notice. He's a large creature and creates a lot of what should we say? A lot of death. Well, he kills a lot of others. It would be hard to hide Tyrannosaurus rex in our present world. So, I'd be willing to go along with the proposition that Tyrannosaurus rex is no longer extant on Earth. But so what? There's so many other worlds where he could be king. Sometimes that question is asked in a mathematical way, that if, how can there be increasing population if there's you know, if the living beings are eternal. And again, it's answered the same way, that we're just looking at one tiny universe out of millions of universes. There's no difficulty. And we're looking at just usually the human species out of species that have millions and millions and millions of living entities. You know, how many ants are there in New York City? Okay.
Have a question?
Okay, let me just look at that word dvasta tamasa, which Prabhupada looks at, which means free from ignorance, or having been freed from ignorance. So the living entity, chief living entity, Lord Brahma, has to be free from ignorance in order to do the wonderful work he does. Okay, your question.
Yeah. To what extent is Krishna involved in determining the destination of living entities? For example, one who's transmigrating from a beetle to a monkey or something like that, you know, like animals.
From what I've understood, they all are gradually promoted. You know exactly what the track is, we're not quite sure. You know, I couldn't say. But because they don't violate the laws of nature, they're automatically promoted. You never see a tiger stealing oranges. They always act according to the dharma of a tiger. So these creatures, and lower ones and higher ones, are gradually promoted. They don't have to do anything, automatically, step by step, in what must be an excruciatingly slow process, because there's so many species and so on. But they're gradually promoted until they come to the human life. And then in human life, they can go up or they can go down according to their use of more easily available free will.
Praveen Prabhu writes, couldn't it be that the Rex be a speculative species by the scientists?
Yeah, anything's possible. It could be that there ain't no such creature. But here in New York City, we have the American Museum of Natural History, which I haven't visited for decades, but I assume they still have an enormous skeleton of Tyrannosaurus Rex in a hall somewhere. And it's conceivable that the whole thing is a hoax, but not likely. The simplest explanation is that they did dig up such a skeleton, or several skeletons, from which composite pictures have been put together. And so there was such a creature as Tyrannosaurus Rex. Speculative species could be, but that's probably would be a hard theory to defend. Yes.
How can we see this automatic karma track of the animal species as a feature of Krishna's mercy to the living entity?
Well, you're growing up gradually. You want more mercy. You want to be promoted right away from an ant to a monkey. But this is the material world, and if we misuse our independence and are demoted to the species of ants, then it's going to be slow going. But compare that to the picture where there's one life and then the judgment, where you only get one opportunity to live a human life, and then you're either consigned to everlasting hell, or you make it, you go to the kingdom of God. Is that more merciful, or is it more merciful to have a picture where there's gradual evolution, as it were, gradual rising up from one life to the next until one comes again to the human life? Yes, we could take some water.
Okay, nothing more in the chat.
Okay, we can go to the next verse.
Okay, there are some things in the chat.
Okay.
Okay. Murari Gupta Prabhu writes, Hare Krishna Maharaj, there's a new theory that T-Rex was covered in feathers and looked more like a giant chicken. The skeleton may be from another yuga when everything was bigger.
Yeah. The Bhaktivinoda Institute scientists in some early meeting with Srila Prabhupada asked him about dinosaurs. And Prabhupada said, dinosaurs, sinosaurs. That was his only response. It doesn't change, in any case, our basic view that there's so many different species of life and that the original creature is the most intelligent, Lord Brahma. And then so many other species are created by him and the Prajapatis. We have our accounts in Bhagavatam of, or in Vedic literature, of Timingil fish, which are gigantic creatures not seen today's world. And okay, Tyrannosaurus Rex may have had feathers, or he may have had wings hidden somewhere, or he may have been this, or he may have been that. But the summary is that there are so many different species of life with different features, accommodating different desires of different living entities. And the rest is detail, whether Tyrannosaurus was brownish or greenish, or whether he was this or was that. Those are details. But the overall picture in which there are different bodies assigned or granted to different living entities on account of their past karma remains the same. Hare Krishna.
Saraswati Master writes, some Vaishnavas pray if they have to take on some animal form, then they want to be housed in a Vaishnava's house. What will be the benefit for this?
Yes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is praying like that. Because if I'm born in a Vaishnava's house, I'll always hear the holy name, I'll get prasadam. There'll be, yes, those things especially. Then Judakarma says, Praveen writes, Judakarma Prabhu's Forbidden Archaeology mentions an incident where paleontologists expressly suppressed the fossil evidence that was inconsistent with Darwin. Yeah, that's there. We know that people on all sides of every question will sometimes cheat and come up with something that suppress evidence that they don't like. I've seen that kind of behavior. So that may happen. That doesn't explain everything, of course. It's not that we can explain away Darwin by saying, well, some people have suppressed contrary data. And it can also be a fallacy, but when you don't really have it, you say, oh, there's data that supports my view. It's just all been suppressed. I'm really right. I don't have any data at hand, but that's only because the data's been hidden. That's kind of a post-dated check. If scientists were to say that, we would mock them. So if we say it, they're entitled to mock us, except when we can demonstrate it, as Judakarma Prabhu has quite extensively done, Judakarma and Sadhapura. That said, yeah, so there are instances of that. But they have their data, which tells us something, but it just doesn't, it's insufficient. It doesn't explain what it's supposed to explain. And there's, again, as Drew Karma and others have demonstrated, there's data that it doesn't explain. There's data that's, dramatically opposed to their theory, or dramatically out of line with their theory, and they just can't explain it except by saying that it's bogus, or it shouldn't be taken seriously. But again, Satiputta has demonstrated, or brought to light, many instances where the data really is inconsistent with their view. And that happens in other fields. In parapsychology, is quite ferocious, actually, how the extent to which science just dismisses the evidence. There's evidence for past life memories. There's evidence for out-of-body experiences. There's evidence for psychokinesis. There's evidence for remote viewing. There's evidence for clairvoyance. There's evidence for, what is it called? Anyway, there's evidence for all. There's evidence for apparitions. There's evidence for all sorts of things. And scientists just dismiss it all, even though the journals in parapsychology are by necessity more rigorous than you'd usually find in other fields, because they know that they're going to be attacked like anything. They know they're going to be attacked like anything, so they go to great lengths to rule out normal explanations and so on. And still, it just gets dismissed as fringe science, and all you have to do is pull out the fringe science banner, and immediately, the data can be waved away as inconsequential or unreliable, without cause, without justification. So we know that scientism deals in this way by trying to suppress data that supports a non-mechanistic view of reality. That is true, and that's called cheating. We have imperfect senses, we have a tendency to make mistakes, and we have a tendency to cheat. So the materialistic scientists, secular humanists, and so on, who are not really dealing in science, but who are using science in the service of a particular worldview, a materialistic worldview. We see such scientists claiming that they represent science when they really represent something else. They don't represent, well, wherever the data takes us, that's where we go. They represent a dogma, really, a religion. So that's there.
Saraswati. Mataji writes, Trutakarma Prabhuji came to our local temple and talked of how a piece of human finger bone found is dated millions of years ago, which is hidden in scientific community.
Yeah, there are many, many, many examples of how evidence contrary to the generally accepted picture is dismissed without cause. Murari Gupta has a comment.
Murari Gupta Prabhu writes, the dismissal of past life experiences is always done by scientists who aren't connected with its study, and never by those who are.
Well, in fairness, there are scientists in the parapsychological community who are aware of the data. You don't have to give away. Who are aware of the data, who looked at it with broad-mindedness, and who take, different views of what it represents. They have their sophisticated critiques of this or that case, or of cases in general. They have alternative explanations, and that's acceptable in the world of science. They're not, although it may largely be true that so many scientists simply dismiss the data without really being familiar with it, it's also true that there are those who are quite familiar with it and who have or seek to have alternative explanations. It's not just that, oh, it must be that there's a living being who really was Mina in a previous life and therefore remembers the life of Mina. There are alternative explanations, and there's a sort of robust discussion in the parapsychological, the psi community about these different ways of looking at things. It's not the only one theory can be must be embraced, because that's where all the data leads. There are alternatives, and they're open for discussion. But it's also true that there are those who don't even bother to go there. They don't look at the data. They just glance at it and say, it's all, damn it, all fringe science, all this, that. In any case, we're not in any of those communities in terms of our method. Our method is top-down. We take it from Vedic literature. We have examples in Srimad Bhagavatam of past life recall. We have Nalakuvara and Manigriva. We have Maharaj Nirga, who was born as a lizard, but remembered his life as King Nirga. We have many examples of past life memories, past life recollection. So we take it from our sources, above all. Our method is not the empiric method, it's the method of receiving knowledge by a descending process. All right.
Okay. Nothing in the chat?
Okay. Again, the essential point is that really this is an atheistic theory, that everything happens. Ultimately, life comes from chemicals. Chemicals evolve into the first one-celled creatures, and the one-celled creatures evolve into sophisticated human beings with all these other species along the way. It's ultimately a picture of reality that seeks to explain everything solely by the interactions of matter, and without any and rule out any need or any scope for intelligent direction from a supreme person. So they're atheists. Jagadahurani Paraspara Sambhutam Kimanyat Kamohitakam. In the Bhagavad Gita, such theories are condemned as demonic. Anything that's a worldview that seeks to exclude the creator of the universe is, by definition, atheistic, and by the definition of the Gita, demonic. Okay.
Would you like to continue?
Yeah. Atedam nityada yukto japan avahita puman achirach treya apnoti vasudeva parayana. A devotee of Lord Krishna, whose mind is always absorbed in him, who with great attention and reverence chants this stotra, prayer, will achieve the greatest perfection of life without delay. Perfection purport means becoming a devotee of Lord Krishna. As stated in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Makaha. The ultimate goal of life is Vasudeva, or Krishna. Any devotee of Lord Krishna can attain all perfection, material gains, and liberation simply by offering prayers to him. There are many varieties of prayers to Lord Krishna, chanted by great sages and great personalities, such as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Lord Krishna is known as Shiva Virinchi Nutam. Shiva means Lord Shiva, and Virinchi means Lord Brahma. Both of these demigods are engaged in offering prayers to Lord Vasudeva, Krishna. If we follow in the footsteps of such great personalities and become devotees of Lord Krishna, our lives will become successful. Unfortunately, people do not know this secret. Nate vidu svartagatim Vishnu. They do not know that the real interest and the highest perfection of life is to worship Lord Vishnu, Krishna. It is impossible to become satisfied by trying to adjust the external energy. Without being a devotee of Lord Krishna, one can only be baffled and confused. To save living entities from such calamity, Lord Krishna points out in Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam janmanam ante Gyanavan mam prapadyate Vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. After many, many births and deaths, a wise man surrenders unto me, knowing very well that I, Vasudeva, am everything. Such a great soul is very rare. We can achieve whatever benediction we want simply by becoming devotees of Vasudeva. The line is notable here. It's impossible to become satisfied by trying to adjust the external energy. That's the material project, that somehow we'll conquer nature, or we'll learn how to work with nature, or harness nature, different languages used. But we can do it if we just use our good intelligence and our capabilities and our advanced understandings and inventions. We can adjust material nature in such a way that we'll have ultimately happiness. We'll have what we want in life. And it doesn't work. Unless one becomes Krishna conscious, one can only be baffled and confused. Baffled and confused. They can do all of these manipulations and show all these wonderful things and still be miserable. And ultimately, we talked about sort of making adjustments. What would we call it? Small scale evolution. One butterfly changes to a mild extent into a different kind of butterfly. No, they can make little changes or apparent changes in the effects of nature. But that kind of advancement is only apparent. They make one kind of improvement and mess something else up. They, they developed the automobile, and now we're no longer constrained to the limitations of horses. But then we have all the problems that the automobile has created. We can conquer polio, then we'll have cancer. We can conquer tuberculosis, but then we'll have AIDS. You can't really win. Oh, Maya Duratya. Maya's insurmountable. Dukhalayam ashashvatam. Anityam asukam lokam. This material world is built to be miserable. And there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do about it. Not by any amount of material adjustment, as Prabhupada calls it, that he says. Adjustment of the external energy. You can't adjust it. No one has been able to stop death. No one has been able to really make a difference in the extent of disease. No one has been able to stop old age. And we hear, oh, people live so much longer now, but I've had practical experience. You go to Indian villages and you see these robust old men. And do you really see that in New York City to the same extent? So I'm not even sold on that old age is succumbed. Yes, maybe you can live longer statistically, but what does that mean in terms of what your life is? I wouldn't want to be, in a hospital living longer with tubes and devices and all of that. What's the point? Statistical longevity. So, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Dosha Nidarshanam, one has to be aware of these four miseries and aware that we can't really conquer them by any amount of material adjustment. One has to become Krishna conscious, God conscious. Then Mame Viye Prapadyante, Maya Me Tam Tamantate. Then one can get free from Maya and ultimately free from death. Check Vadeham Punarjanma 90.
Got a question. Is it right that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said that the person who wants to reform the world is in need of being reformed?
I don't know.
I've heard that.
I think I may have heard that also. I haven't seen it firsthand in anything published, but
I follow.
But it's true.
That's what
we want to reform material nature. That means we're living in illusion, and therefore we need to be reformed. So it's certainly true.
Can you talk about why it's true? Because we do want to make the world a better place by sending people back to Godhead. So
that doesn't make the world a better place. That gets them out. But yes, to the extent that the world can be made a better place, because that's the shortage in the world, the shortage of Krishna consciousness. So that we can do something about. But it's not that people become Krishna conscious, they won't get old, they won't die, they won't get diseased. We're not thinking that, yes, I'll carve out an exception for the devotees of Krishna. They won't get old, they won't get diseased, they won't die. That'll still be there. But what actually happens in terms of first the quality of this life, in terms of how they deal with those things, and ultimately going back to Godhead. It's true, we can't stop old age for the Vaishnavas either. Yes, if you live a certain way, you'll have a better life. That's true. No gambling, no intoxicants, no meat eating, no illicit sex. Automatically, you'll improve the quality of your life, the length of your life, everything. But that's ultimate. These are like side points. It's not that we're trying to get people to become Krishna conscious so that we can have a better world. It's so that we can get out of this world and go back to Godhead, serve Krishna. Even in this world, if we serve Krishna, it becomes as good as the spiritual world. That's what we want to see. That at least in this world, there'll be those who live in the spiritual world by devotional service. And at the end, they'll live in the actual kingdom of God.
Rari Gupta Prabhu writes, live in harmony with nature has a nice ring to it, but nature is designed to cause us suffering.
Yes, but the suffering will be less if we live according to Shastric injunctions, which means, yes, this is how you deal with nature. Don't try to exploit nature. Nature's Krishna's nature. So play according to Krishna's rules. That means sacrifice, especially. Yagyartat karmano nyacha loko yam karma. If we want anena prasivisvu jadvam eshavo swishta kamaduk in the beginning, Lord Vishnu or Lord Brahma gives process of sacrifice and says, here, do these sacrifices and you'll be happy and you'll live happily and you'll attain liberation. So if we follow that direction, we'll get that result. Doesn't have to be as miserable as we make it. It is a world of misery, but as far as possible, we can live happily by performing sacrifice. And in this age, that means Sankirtan Yagya. If we perform the Sankirtan Yagya, we'll have a happy life as far as possible. And at the end, go back home, back to God.
Okay, before Kirtan, Saraswati Mataji, would you like to say something?
Yes, just very quickly. I can't recall the name of this scientist in the early 1900s. He performed this experiment where he had 100 mice and, he made sure that they would have everything that they needed in terms of food, really nice towering housing, free from disease, that they'd never have to worry about, where the food is coming from. And he noticed that for the first 100 days, they were very happy, they reproduced like crazy. And then he started to notice that although the population had increased, and after, I think it was day 300, he noticed it had decreased significantly in terms of they had these two warring parties that marked their territories. And everybody was fed enough, but they were just, they marked their territories, and then they found some of them became so lazy and fat, and others became so oblivious to anything, or in other words, they didn't care about anything, and some started eating their children, and by day 600, they'd all died for one reason or another. So he repeated this experiment again, thinking maybe, he'd get a different result, but he didn't. So in the end, he concluded, here's a fool's paradise, and still they're not happy, and that's just for mice. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Kirtan.
Saraswati Mataji, would you like to lead Kirtan?
Could I pass it on to Krishna Konteya Prabhuji? Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Nitai Gaur Brahmanande Hare Hare Bol.
Jai Vishnupad Panamansa Pariprajaka Ashtotra Satyashi Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
His Holiness Jayādvaita Swami Ki Jai.
Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Krishna Kantiya Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.